Hi folks, welcome back. So we're going to have another look at the Love and Marriage unit, and today we're going to look at Catullus poem 5. So far we've looked at an epitaph to Claudia, we had a look at Cicero's letters, whereas the epitaph is in pink because it is a kind of poem. Cicero's letters, we need to remember, are prose, so you need to think about the purpose of why Catullus is writing, how that's different, and also look out for really different types of effects. When you write about different authors in your essay, in your 15 marker, it's really helpful for you to be able to say who is a poet, who's writing in prose, i.e. not poetry, and who their audience really is. So Catullus, I've given an image of him and his girlfriend Lesbia. Okay. Catullus is like a fairly wealthy Roman poet from the Republic, and he's known as a neoteric author. That means that he is using themes and ideas from Greek poetry and his own poetry, and we'll explore that more when we start to look at the way he writes. The lady in question who he is writing for, at least within the poetry, is a lady he calls Lesbia. We think that that is a fake name, okay? Lesbia refers to the island of Lesbos, which is where the poet Sappho came from and wrote. So it's kind of a nudge and a wink to a Greek poetess. It's also a nudge and a wink to a Greek poetess who wrote love poetry about other women. The reason we think he's using this pseudonym is because some scholars think that actually his girlfriend's married and that Lesbia could be a fake name for a noblewoman such as Clodia Metella, who is married and therefore is just Catullus's lover. So there's an interesting dynamic. If we read Catullus's poems as autobiographical, which some people do, some people warn against, it looks like he's actually writing kind of boyfriend poems to his married girlfriend. And that's something that we can kind of keep in mind when we're reading the poetry. It's going to help you explain it differently on the exam. And it's a real contrast, actually, to the sources we've looked at that are about marriage and the role that marriage plays in building a family, establishing like positive bonds, affluent bonds between wealthy families, and it really being arranged. This is more about love and also unrequited love at times because their relationship seems quite different in different poems. So let's start by looking at the Latin and English for Catullus 5. Vivamus mea lesbia, adque amemos, rumoresque senum serviorum, omnes unius aestememus assis. Let us live, my lesbia, and love. Vivamos, let us live. Amemos, let us love. So easy stuff you know from the language paper. And value all the stories. Rumoresque. So these are the stories. It's where we get the word rumours. Those rather strict old men. Senum severiorum. So senum, old men. Severiorum is like severe. Omnes unius aestememus assis. At a single as. So he's kind of disregarding what traditional old fuddy-duddies say. Soles occidere et redire possunt, nobis cum semel occidit brevis lux. Nox est perpetua una dormienda. So suns can set, soles occidere, and rise again, redire. So possunt you know already from the language paper, and it introduces occidere and redire, which are both infinitives. We can spot that they're infinitives because they have two. So if you wanted to be really literal, suns are able to set and to rise, like fine. But once the brief light has set for us, so brevis lux is the brief light, occidi is set, and the word order is quite different in Catullus. Nox est perpetua, that is night is everlasting. Una dormienda, for us to sleep through. Dormienda is from dormire, to sleep, but it's in a form that I don't think we have to look at for the EDUQAS language paper. So it's a gerundive, and it's one word that means needing to sleep. So although we have to add lots of words in English to translate that whole phrase for us to sleep through is just one word in Latin, dormienda, okay? Vocab you know, grammar you might not know. Da mi basia mille, de inde centum, de in mille altera, de in secunda centum, de inde usque altera mille, de inde centum. Tedious, isn't it? Right. Give me 1,000 kisses. Dami, so give to me. Basia is the kisses, and mille, deinde centum, then 100. So once you know mille and you know centum, you know this entire bit because he's so repetitive in what he says. He's a bit keen. Dein cum millia multa fecerimus, conturbabimus illa, nesciamus, aut nequis malus invidere possit, cum tantum sciat esse basiorum. Right. Then, when we have had many thousands, fecerimus, when we have made, literally, here when we have had, millia multa, so many thousands, goes together. I like a maths, this is a maths teacher's dream, this poem, because it's just loads of numbers, to be honest. Conturbabimos, we will mix them all up. So that's a bit of vocab you perhaps don't know. Okay. Nesciamos, so that we do not know. Okay, so this is a negative purpose clause. Ne, you can translate it as so that ... not. Or you can use the very old-fashioned English word lest. If you use lest, you kind of always arrive at the correct translation in the end. Lest we know would work. Sciamos is from scire, to know. You know that from the language paper. Nor can some evil person cast his spell. So malus is the evil person. We know that malus has to be masculine because it ends in us, so some evil man. Invidere possit. Possit may be able to. It's subjunctive and it's the verb to be able to. Invidere is like to cast a spell here. Or to look on with envy. It's actually quite a hard word to translate. Here it's been cast a spell. Cum tantum sciat esse basiorum. When he knows. Cum sciat, when he knows. Tantum, how many or how great are the kisses. Basiorum. So here it might be like a little nudge wink about her husband. If we go for the reading that this is actually to a married woman who is Catullus's girlfriend. Okay. So lots of vocab, you know, a lot of repetition actually. Like if you just revised some of the repeated keywords here, you could talk about this poem quite confidently in a 15 marker. But let's have a look at some effects. So, vivamos amemos, yussive subjunctive. Your teacher might have taught you these as hortative. So it's basically subjunctives that encourage us to do something. We actually use this in English, like let it be is a subjunctive phrase in English. So vivamos amemos, let's do this, let's do that. He speaks about them in the first person plural as quite an established couple. And we've got enclosed in order, so it gets a lot of emphasis because he starts and ends his lines with them. We have some frontline emphasis on rumoresque, so this is like stories, rumours that are being told. It gives the impression that they are having a kind of illicit affair, either because they're married to other people or they're not married to one another, and they're kind of pushing the envelope with what they're trying to get away with. Frontline emphasis only works when you're talking about poetry. Please do not talk about frontline or endline emphasis when you talk about prose. It's much harder to do because it doesn't fall into metrical lines, okay? And here, rumores and omnes, all of the rumours, all of the men, like the idea that their relationship attracts a lot of interest from other people, okay? And then he becomes a little bit more poetic in the imagery he uses. So suns can set and rise again. It's a little bit grandiose. He's only talking about his girlfriend. Like, it's not on such a grand scale, but it becomes a little bit romantic. If we have a little look again, novice, for us, to us, so speaking about them as an established couple, as a we, is something that comes up again and again. We also have enjambment, so when an idea is stretched over a line, and a bit of antithesis, because he has lux, nox, light and night. Okay. There is also an effect that you perhaps don't focus on quite so much here in the final line here. Homoi teleuton. This is a fancy Greek word for saying that the words have the same ending. And to be quite honest, it happens a lot in Latin because of the case endings. But the effect that it has here is to stretch out and join together these words to reflect what it's saying. So there is a never-ending night through which we sleep. the idea of it being on and on and on and never ending. Perpetua una dormienda, like the A stretches it out. And I explain the gerundive, where it's one word that shows that something needs to happen. The reason it's a gerundive here and not a gerund is because it agrees with perpetua. Okay, so this is where he gets a bit out of hand, doesn't he? Let's be honest. We have the imperatives, da, give. So rather than it being we, he's now pushing her to do things. Da mi basia mille. We have an aphora with day in, day, day in, day in, day in, day, day in, day in. And then, and it's really, really repetitive. It's quite an exhaustive list. Then this, then that. I mean, the repetition here is really evident, but be careful about it. Like, in a way, Catullus is handing you something really easy to say, so we need to make sure that we explain it really well. There are different instances of repetition in this verse. So we have the anaphora of day in, day in, day in, making the list seem very exhaustive. We have him alternating between mille, centum, 1,000 and 100. So the reason we have centum, centum, centum at the end of each line is to just kind of break up the list. This is called epistrophe. It's the opposite of anaphora. It's when like a phrase or line ends in the same way, and so it adds a little bit of pace to the list, and it makes it seem very exhaustive and never ending. So the amount of repetition reflects the amount of kisses that he wants, like the idea that it's just kind of rapid fire repeated. So you need to be able to explain that. If you just say, oh, it's repetitive, the examiner's going to be a little bit underwhelmed. For this instance, I would pick out different types of repetition. Halfway through, milia multa fecerimus. So we have alliteration in milia multa, okay? Fecerimus, sciamus, conturbabimus, all homointelluton because we're back to the we verbs now. So you can actually point out the grammar, the use of the first person plural would be a legitimate effect for you to talk about with this poem, okay? After we've made these kisses, we will do this. So we also could call that a tricolon because you have three verbs, three we verbs, fecerimus, conturbabimus, sciamus. Okay. And then when we get to the very end of the poem, basiorum has endline emphasis. So it closes the main theme of the poem, to be honest. So in this poem from Catullus, we have fairly kind of clear picture that he and Lesbia have a sexual relationship. He focuses on kissing her. He focuses on the gossip around older men in their community about their relationship. And he talks about their relationship in like quite a grandiose romantic way, rather than the themes of like obligation, duty, and family that we really see when we think about a marriage. We also have the suggestion that Lesbia might be a pseudonym for a married girlfriend. So there's quite a lot to look at for love and marriage as themes in this poem. And I would really recommend thinking about how you could just remember a few quotes for a 15 marker on this because it is so helpful thematically. I'll link relevant resources in the description for you, and I'll keep the playlist going with the rest of the text on this unit. Okay, so good luck revising.